reasons for doing it.
Does that present a conflict of interest for you?
No.
Plus, the courts meet Donald Trump's actions with equal and opposite reactions, as Musk accuses judges of waging a coup. Also, restraint and reckoning. The King of Jordan shows nothing as he stands next to the American president who wants to turn Gaza into an American colony. Live at the table, Bakari Sellers, Scott Jennings, Nayyera Haq, and Emily Austin. Americans with different perspectives aren't talking to each other, but here they do.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Any moment now, an extraordinary and inspiring scene will unfold at the White House. The American teacher who was detained in Russia for more than 3 years is now back on American soil, and he'll be greeted by the president at the White House. Mark Fogle has been detained in Russia since August 2021 when he was accused of large-scale drug smuggling. Fogle was released in what the White House is calling an exchange, though there is not much clarity on what the United States, if anything, gave in return. CNN's Jeff Zeleny joins us now live from the White House with more. So Zeleny, take us behind the scenes of this exchange. It came as a bit of a surprise today.
Abby, it did, but it's actually been in the works for quite some time, and the president is going to meet Mark Fogle in the diplomatic reception room once they make their way here to the White House. It's a snowy night in Washington. He'll be coming from Joint Base Andrews. You can see right there he's walking off the steps of the plane before he steps foot on American soil. They're wearing an American flag. It says Mark Fogle is back. Promises made, promises kept. Those promises, I'm told, were made directly between the president and Mark Fogle's mother. They met actually back in Pennsylvania at that Butler, Pennsylvania rally that, of course, was the assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life. So that's where this began. And the mother there of Mark Fogle said that she was hoping the president would pay attention to her son's case. She was frustrated with the Biden administration's slow handling in her view of this. So that's where Donald Trump's involvement in this was. So he is going to be greeting Mark Fogle here. But it also marks the beginning of certainly new relations between the United States and Russia. This is the first time a U.S. official has been flown, at least as far as we know, to Moscow since the Ukraine invasion. And Steve Witkoff, who, of course, is the president's special envoy to the Middle East and also other portfolios, he flew over there on his private plane unannounced. And then this afternoon, it was announced that Mark Fogle was coming back. He was in U.S. airspace, or he was outside of Moscow's airspace. So really, it is opening up a conversation about what comes next between the U.S., of course, and Moscow. The president has spoken with Vladimir Putin at least one time, we're told, and he certainly wants to talk to him more. So that is the question here. What does this signal? And in terms of the one-on-one, it's unclear who the U.S. will be giving up for him. We're likely to hear that more tomorrow, Abby.
Yeah, Jeff Zeleny, thank you very much. And do stand by for us, because we will take that event when it happens at the White House. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about DOGE. DOGE and deference. Tonight, a picture that says much more about who's steering the government and its crash diet to slim America's bureaucracy down to size. Elon Musk held court at the Oval Office for nearly 30 minutes today, essentially relegating the president of the United States to a spectator. But did he adopt a Trump style and substance? And by that, I mean, he said things with absolutely no proof to substantiate them. He accused U.S. officials at USAID, the foreign aid agency that he just demolished, of taking, quote, kickbacks. And he accused unnamed federal employees of becoming millionaires off of government salaries, implying that they were up to something sinister. And he said some people who were getting Social Security checks were as old as 150. Musk gave no insight about how he arrived at those conclusions, no proof about another critical question: if Musk's businesses will clash with how he is going about nipping and tucking your government.
All of our actions are fully public. So if you see anything, you say, like, wait a second, hey, Elon, that seems like maybe that's, there's a conflict there. It's not like people are going to be shy about saying that. They'll say it immediately.
Including you yourself.
Yes. But transparency is what builds trust, not simply somebody asserting trust. So not somebody saying they're trustworthy, but transparency, so you can see everything that's going on.
All right, so just to be clear, we are not seeing everything that is going on. That is just not true. But I mean, there are some really straightforward questions for Elon Musk, including a lot of the institutions, the inspectors general that were investigating his companies, they're gone. They've been fired, their offices disbanded. That in and itself is a very straightforward conflict that exists right at this moment. He didn't acknowledge that.
Not only that, but I mean, USAID was investigating the funds that they gave Starlink when he was able to give satellite access. You had the FAA director was investigating Elon Musk as well. And if you want to talk about transparency, why not let us see his financial disclosures? I mean, the fact is the White House is hiding Elon Musk financial disclosures, and we don't know whether or not he has a conflict or not. And I think that most Democrats actually will say, we do not mind. It's what the American public wants when you're talking about getting rid of bureaucracy, trimming government, getting rid of fat. But the fact is, he is taking a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel. He is amputating arms of government that are necessary. And this is literally, no one knows what he's doing. No one can still answer me the question about what Elon Musk is doing in the Department of Treasury. No one's going to know what he's doing in public education at the Department of Education. But we do know one thing that he's doing, which is where he had a vendetta, where Tesla was fined, where Starlink had issues, where he was under investigation. Those are the first companies to go.
Here's what he can do with access to all the Treasury data and payments. He can make sure that people who are on blacklists, people who have been taking bribes or kickbacks, some of them potential business partners of his and friends of his from the past, that those people now can access millions and millions of dollars of government contracts. I think the transparency is all good and fine if you also have accountability. And that's where the challenge we're seeing is where's the accountability for immediately halting programs and having taxpayer dollars wasted with millions of dollars of vaccines and medicines just sitting in ports in Africa going to waste.
We learned tonight one thing about, the issue at Treasury. So this employee who was actually fired for a bunch of racist messages that he posted on X, it turns out, according to the government and court filings, he did have access to the Treasury payment system. He had read and write access. This is despite the countless denials that DOGE employees did not have that kind of access to the system. Now they're doing a forensic audit to find out how that happened. But that's why the questions about real transparency, truly, who are these people? What are they authorized to do? What exactly are the programs that are being cut? And why, and which ones are not being cut? We don't have the answers to any of those things.
Yeah.
Couple things. Number one, you guys are way out over your skis with accusations and innuendo. You have no way. I mean, what you're essentially alleging would be the biggest corruption in any of our lifetimes. You have no way in the world of making those accusations in a credible way, but yet you're out here doing it, number one. Number two, on the Treasury Department.
I just want to clarify, because I also think you're accusing me of saying that these things are happening. I'm just saying.
No, did you hear what they just said?
I was going to
let you finish. Of the biggest corruption we've ever seen.
Hold on, Bakari. Scott, what I said was that Elon Musk's companies were being investigated by the government. The people investigating him have been fired, their offices disbanded. Those are both facts. So the question is, how do we know that Elon is not benefiting from it? And the answer is we don't know.
But if you're going to accuse me of that, please, Scott, tell me what I said that was incorrect.
You just said that Elon Musk is working at the behest of the president in what would amount to the biggest corruption scheme to enrich himself.
What did I say that was incorrect?
We've ever seen. And I think you're out over your skis. I don't think you know that.
Was he under investigation by the FAA?
I think you guys are overboard.
Was he under investigation
Before you blanket you guys, I made it very clear, based on images and data and the transparency that we have, that USAID's resources that have been halted in place are resulting in massive waste.
And why? Because Marco Rubio issued a waiver. He issued a waiver on the first day for all humanitarian and medicine. So why aren't they delivering it? Whose fault is it? He issued a waiver.
We have staff that have been told not to go to work, thousands of people around the world. You have countries and NGOs that are laying off people because they don't know if the money's going to come. And so you have all of this taxpayer-funded medicine and research equipment
and
all
this
stuff.
Said it should be delivered.
Food,
he has directly said it should be delivered.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that, Scott. Rubio has said that those quote-unquote life-saving programs should be continued.
Yes,
However, what has not happened is that the Trump administration has never said explicitly which programs should continue. So maybe that list exists. Hold on. No. Maybe that list of programs exists. Have you seen it?
I think there was a lot of willful disobedience going on here over this. He has directly said food, medicine, anything with food and medicine. If you have a program with food and medicine, how much more specific could you be?
That's what we
PEPFAR, malaria,
things
that go into famines.
Okay. I think it's selective framing. It's not that what you said was incorrect or you said was incorrect. You're offering selective information. Like you said, what is Elon doing? What is he gaining from it? Why? Let's take a step back and look at USAID and look at all of their failed projects. Yes, okay, he said they sent 50 million condoms to Gaza. He meant Gaza, Mozambique, or another country.
And we don't know if the number is 50 million, just to be clear.
But the common denominator here, but that's not the point. The point is that it's an outrageous amount of money. Let's assume for now.
I don't think that's the amount.
That's just one example.
$9
million from a Syrian national went to a proxy terror group from Al Qaeda. That was thanks to USAID. $200 million went to concrete funding for Gaza was supposed to be, which we know went to Hamas tunnels now, holding hostages of Israeli citizens. So that was funded by our taxpaying dollars, USAID. Those were fact-checked. Those are proven to be true. Now, no one's denying that USAID has critical work, and they do have life-saving programs, which Marco Rubio has said to continue. But when something is failing so badly, and now it's coming out, you need to take a look back, and it's okay to reevaluate if this program is worth keeping, reforming, or canceling.
So I was part of an administration as a diplomat working with USAID as a senior advisor at the State Department, so I'm speaking from experience. This idea of folding USAID into state is not new. This was something discussed under democratic regimes also. The idea being that you should have a policy focus on how your aid money is going, not a massive contracting vehicle with a lot of overhead. This is not the way to execute on fixing the challenges that we've had with bureaucracy. More chaos does not mean efficiency in saving money.
But you have to admit, some of the things that have been identified, the programs where the money has gone around the world, any reasonable person would look at it and say,
it's money laundering.
This is objectively ridiculous, and it doesn't meet the foreign policy aims of this administration or our national interests.
Do we shut the entire thing down?
And I don't think anybody has a problem. Truthfully, Bakari, I don't think many Americans would have a problem with saying, okay, we have money, lots of money going out the door. We need to identify what's going where. Is this helping us? Is this hurting us? And is this technically
I think that's exactly what people would expect that would be happening, except that's not what's happening.
That's what I'm agreeing with. But that's what I'm agreeing with Scott with. Because
what's happening is that the entire agency has been disbanded. They've emptied out the offices. They put all the employees on leave. One other aspect
of this. But not the foreign aid. The foreign aid can still go out.
Bakari.
Just because the bureaucracy is...
Scott, look, again, the Secretary of State said, yeah, those programs should continue. The question is, A, which programs, and do they know that? And why isn't the money going out?
He says it every day, every interview he gives, he says
he's in charge now. He should be making sure it happens.
It would be great to actually have a plan on how to execute the aid going out.
One aspect of this is that even Republicans, Senator Rand Paul, has basically said this actually needs to come back to Congress. He said DOGE is really doing good stuff, but ultimately that money is going to be sent back to us as a rescission package. I don't think they can just not spend. DOGE can't stop spending. They can stop stuff from happening, but if the money is sitting there, there is a question, is it impounded or isn't going to get sent back in a rescission package? Basically what he is saying is what we were talking about yesterday on the show. They can't just not spend the money because Congress has authorized it. And at some point, Congress, elected people, need to have a hand in this.
If we're going to do this with some type of precision, if we're going to do this with some type of plan, I think that's what most Americans are asking for. Scott made a good point. If you want to go in and say this program is bad because it funds this, that's fine. What we are saying, though, is that they do good work. And one of the things that both of you all will agree with is that the soft power that's exuded by USAID, who was filling that gap around the world? We see these articles every day that China is stepping up in that void where we used to be. That should terrify Americans.
That didn't just start today, Bakari. That's been going on for years.
But it's going to accelerate now, though, Scott.
And Rubio, the Secretary of State and the head of USAID functionally now, has said he supports soft power. He understands its use. He's been a supporter of it as a member of the U.S. Senate, and it is going to continue, but not in the ridiculous way that it has been. I think that is perfectly fine with most Americans.
Well, I think we should see some rhetoric matching the reality of what the planning is right now.
Go ahead.
Respectfully, I want to disagree with you. Said Congress approved X amount of dollars going to
that's not what I said.
Okay, that's the reality.
What Rand Paul said.
Well, that's the truth. Congress approves a certain amount of money to these programs, assuming that they're doing the work they're supposed to be doing. So when you find out that you do approve all of this money to go towards programs let's say feeding starving children or helping sick people with their vaccines, and then you find out it's essentially being used as money laundering for terrorism. Not all of it, but too much of it. Why is it a problem in the interim to take a step back away from that?
Hold on 1 second.
I know you're a diplomat, but as a taxpayer, that's outrageous.
Listen,
I'm both, thank you.
nobody wants money to go to terrorism, but that's what's happening. But there's absolutely no question that the vast majority of money that is dispersed by USAID did not go to terrorism. And on top of that,
how much is too much?
But no. A dollar is too much.
Okay,
Scott,
good.
Okay?
Then we're finding it.
A dollar is too much. But the idea that that is the majority of the spending is not true. But secondly, the cuts that are experienced by USAID right now, you can say whatever you want about it. It's a lot of things that policy-wise, Trump and Elon don't like, which is fine. The issue is they've got to go to Congress and say, you need to get rid of this program because Congress authorized this spending. If they don't like the policy, just go to Congress and say, get rid of it. That's how this process is supposed to work.
I also want to add, only 43% of USAID's actual projects were deemed as a success, which means more than half of it is a failure.
By whom?
I will find the statistic.
Well, then you
I
can't
will find the article.
just come on national TV
Hold
and say 43%.
We do have to go. We do have to go here. And look, the point of this is not to spend a lot of time justifying everything that USAID is doing.
I'm saying that more than half of
the question
failed.
By
is,
whom?
stop.
I will send you the article. I'll tweet it. I'll put it publicly.
Everyone stay with me. We'll resume the conversation another time. Back to our breaking news. In just a few moments, President Trump is going to greet the American who just landed on U.S. soil after spending 3 years inside of a Russian prison. Stand by for that major moment when it unfolds.